What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while and I wanted to make a video updating everybody on the truck, but unfortunately I don't really have anything finished to talk about today. There could be some entertainment value from watching me try and fail on this project, but that's not my angle. I think what would make me more happy is somebody watched this video and learned with me, not from me, and also posted up videos of their own projects. So let's get into it. Let's stop staring at my feet and show you what's going on here. On the table alone, there's a ton of stuff to unpack for this video. So let's start with the easiest stuff right now, which is the wiring side of things. This harness survived an engine fire from my old truck. As you can see, it got a little hot in this area, but luckily actually nothing melted through on this harness, but I had chopped it up to figure out how exactly it's wired. So the rainbow boondoggle you see on the table is the start of a custom fuel injection control module harness that I'm building for my relocation kit. I'm actually not too sure why I called it a kit, because nothing has been a one-stop shop for this project. Everything that I have bought and had to be sourced out individually from different vendors. You can salvage most of the components from your old Fickum harness, like the connector ends. But as you know, that the plastic on these wire harnesses becomes brittle and fatigues after so many usages, and the clips will end up snapping off at some point in the future. For my project, it made more sense to start over with brand new connection ends and hardware, including the wire. Electrical is one of the most misunderstood parts of automotive applications. Despite having a palette of all different types of wire right here, none of this wire is suited for the application. If you've ever looked at a wire, you'll notice that they have writing on the wire with a bunch of acronyms and abbreviations. What makes MTW wire is the amount of strands of copper inside of the actual wire itself and the thickness of the insulation. Most engineers just don't make stuff to make stuff. That's more of the boss's decision. Engineers build stuff for specific purposes, which is exactly what this wire is built for. Yes, the fire starter material that we all throw in the garbage when we get a box. It's pretty important though. You should probably read some of the stuff that comes with your parts, because it does provide a lot of information that could be valuable. For example, I bought a 400 amp alternator from a company called Tucson Alternator, and it was extremely reasonably priced, and it comes with a whole breakout spec sheet. And it shows you exactly what the alternator you bought did on the bench, so that way you're just not getting an alternator that may or may not work when you receive it. These papers came from the wire harness that I bought from Ford. So it's an OEM Ford wire harness, but what I thought was really cool was they provide you with exactly how they tested this wire harness out and the results of the wire test. That way you're verified to have a good engine harness when you go to install it. And this is the paperwork I received with the wire that I purchased from the vendor. It tells you exactly which wire it is, how much, and the colors that you purchased. One of the things you'll notice about this GXL wire is it doesn't come with any printed label on the insulation. Depending on the wire manufacturer or the vendor you purchase it through, it may or may not contain writing on the insulation. So I spent a good bit of time researching the proper wire for my project, and I came up with GXL being the wire that Chrysler, Ford, and other manufacturers have used in their automotive applications. When it comes to engine harnesses, there's quite a few variables you gotta consider, such as heat, vibration, gas and oil, and also EMF and EMI. The manufacturer of the wire claims that it's suitable up down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius and up to 257 degrees Fahrenheit. So what you're watching now is me start to build the first step of the harness, which is just twisting two pairs of the GXL wire together. These types of projects aren't for everybody. They're long and tedious and require a lot of attention to detail. So it's best to get comfortable, start slow, do one at a time, and do it over the course of a week. Alrighty, sorry about that. My phone died, but you won't really notice it in the video because it's all edited together anyway. This is the brand new wire harness that I bought for my 6-liter. And I have an 03 style, so you're going to have to buy an 03 if you have an 03, or go with the year that your truck is corresponding to, because there are a couple sensors on the newer style truck that have been moved. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to buy the correct year wire harness for my truck. We're going to have to split open the harness though for one step. We need to move this plug all the way back and get it off of this trunk line, because this plug right here goes to your injection control module, but it needs to go the opposite way of where these two connectors are going. To be clear, we're not actually cutting the harness in half. We're just removing the wires for that one plug and then pushing them back through the loom and then re-looming it on the other side. So no splicing, just moving. So on the table, you can already see I've done the majority of the work already. So I'm skipping around a little bit in the video because I don't know the best way to show everything that I'm working on all at the same time. So I'm just trying to make a story here. Once you get your pairs made up, you have to make two pairs meet together in a perfect spiral. If you do it right, you should have a very nice, neat spiral just like this, where the wires perfectly overlap each other in the same pattern over and over and over. The easiest way I found to do this is to tape the start of your wire over here and put a zip tie right at the beginning of the strand's corkscrew pattern. And then once you get started, you can basically put tape on the table every so often in specific increments, so that way you know where to secure with a little piece of tape every so often. And to secure it, I am using a special type of tape called Krypton tape. If you've never used it before, it's great stuff. It's a little bit sticky, it's a pain in the ass to get it unstuck from itself, but it works perfectly for wire applications. And after you got your pairs made up, you'll have 4 wires total. And try to use unique color combinations. It'll make wiring it a lot easier at the very end here, but you'll have 4 strands of wire on either side of your cable. I really wish I had a product I can recommend for everybody to actually do this themselves, but I actually had to get this last 2 components from another wire and actually harvest it out of the wire itself in order to complete this step. So if you look at the original harness, you'll notice that it has this tinfoil looking material wrapped all over everything. It almost looks like gum wrapper, but what it is, it's basically some sort of plastic film that's been laminated with aluminum foil to block out EMF and RFI. The fuel injection control module that we use in these trucks are basically controlled with a pulse width modulation, or PWM. Your vehicle's electrical system can create a lot of static and noise, which can easily interfere with the injection control module's pulse signals that fire the injectors. There's a lot of theory surrounding EMF, EMI, RFI, shielding, and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, there's a few basic principles you need to follow, which is your sync wire, the bare copper wire that wraps around your wires, needs to have a single termination point, or a star pattern they call it. So basically, every one of these sync wires will lead back to the same grounding point. Feet are back up on the table. This video took a weird direction. I wanted to talk about the whole truck, but I spent the entire video talking about wiring. So I guess this video is only going to be about wiring today. But I do have a lot of other stuff I want to talk about, but it's just not finished, and I don't really think it makes sense to put it in this video. So I got an idea how we can end this video. Let's talk about what I have coming in the next videos for you guys regarding the truck. We won't talk specifically about the things, we'll just talk about what it is that I'm up to. So let's talk about some new stuff here on the shelf. I got the PMF center support bracket, which allows me to properly angle my drive shaft, so that way I can compensate for the 4-inch lift, make sure everything has the right pinion angle and everything, keep all my drive lines nice and happy. PMF does a great job on their products. Highly recommend. I got a Banks rear diff cover, which is extremely expensive, but actually I'm not really a fan of Banks, but I do have to admit they do make a good product with their diff cover. It is pretty quality. I just don't like the other stuff they make. This is kind of an interesting topic. This is a little, how would you want to explain it? A little console button thing for your 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel low. But I had put in 2 buttons in here. And these 2 buttons are going to be my air locking differential buttons, which you push that one, that's your front, that's your rear. Obviously, I know those buttons are not air locking buttons, but don't you worry, they will be soon. Got my sending unit all figured out, got all the AN fittings. FYI, if you're trying to do the same thing I did on a fleece unit, you can't use two full flow fittings on this side because they will not screw in. You need to get one of them needs to be a swivel, so that way you can get it tightened down. Otherwise, when you spin the one, it hits the other, or you spin that one, it hits the other. So that's how I was able to get that to work out nicely. I am going to be using the auxiliary return port, and I'll tell you why. This right here is a bracket for a 2016 F350 HFCM fuel conditioning module, however you want to call it. But this pump from a 2016 is going on my truck to feed the stock 6.0 pump. As you can see, I've already been working on it. I have a 1/2-inch stainless steel line that I have plumbed in to hard line, and I used AN fittings to convert everything up. And I have the beginning steps of what is going to happen here. Now, mind you, this one was an absolute disaster. I don't even want to show this. This is the fuel line coming from the front of the motor to my AN line, which perfectly snakes through the manifold with no interference, no chafing. And then it runs down. It'll all be tied up at the very end. I'm still laying everything out, making sure everything's good. Fancy alternator. Mind you that this is a 400 amp alternator, so it uses a smaller pulley, but it retains the same belt because they use spacers. And this is that Tucson alternator I was telling you about. I got some paint patchwork I got to do over here, but these are the holes that I needed to cut in the frame. By cut, drill, whatever you want to call it, but that's what holds the actual bracket for the fuel pump onto the frame. And it fits perfectly in that location, right underneath the support, right in front of the gas tank, and it will plumb perfectly in line as if Ford designed it to be that way, right? This one's somewhat of a cool one too. Maybe next video I'll go more into depth, but I have also converted my transmission lines over to AN fittings. I'll show you an example of what it looks like when it's done. This is what it looks like once you get it all converted over. Mind you, this is basically the original line that the truck came with. I had just sleeved it and then converted it over to an AN fitting on the other side. It uses a 1/2-inch compression fitting, and this right here is a silicone coated fiberglass heat fabric. Alright boys, this is the end of the video. We've reached the end of the road today. I do have more to talk about, but this video is an absolute mess. I hope somebody watches this and also feels that way. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice.